Shut up and sit down.
Welcome to the Health and Wealth Podcast with your hosts, Tim and Carter.
What's trending, Enrichers? Carter Wilcoxon, founder of CSI Financial Group here, with my co-host and former wealth advisor, Tim James, founder of
chemicalfreebody.com and your new health advisor. This is the show where we reveal the connection between physical and financial abundance.
Hey, hello, Enrichers. Carter Wilcoxon here again with my co-host and Chemical Free Body founder, Mr. Tim James. Tim James, how are you doing out there today, bud?
Yeah, I'm doing really good, man. This is the last day I'll be in the continental United States. I'm heading up to Alaska with my boys for hopefully it's going to be an epic fishing trip with them. They're 21 and 18, so it's the first big trip we've had in a while, and I'm really pumped. Going up with a friend of mine that actually I got into the mortgage industry with way back in the day. And back when interest rates were, 7.25% and everybody was refinancing like crazy because everybody was at 9%. So it's been a while, right? Interest rates are like 1%. Everything's down to like nothing forever. It's been that way. So
for sure. So by when you say an epic trip, I'm assuming fishing trip, like you're going to have all this fish that you're going to catch and release, or are you bringing anything home?
Well, yeah, we'll probably bring about 100, 150 pounds home just because the boys are really into that. But we have boxes ready for that. We take 150 pounds of food up, and then we'll use the boxes to bring the stuff down. But we're talking, it'll be right during the June 20th is when we leave. That's like the peak of the salmon runs, the Chinook and sockeye, and and there'll be there's actually trophy rainbow trout up there. They have teeth on them like freaking like piranhas. I mean, so actually what happens is as the salmon are dying, the bodies are decomposing and the chunks of flesh are floating down the stream. The rainbows will hammer it. So what you do is you have these, when you're fly fishing, you have these orangey little threads that kind of look like a flesh pattern. So it looks like a chunk of salmon floating down the river, and they hit that. And these trout are huge. There's grayling, Arctic char, lake trout. There's also pike fishing up in the lakes. So it should be pretty freaking epic. The kids are going to have a blast. It's some of the best fishing in the world.
Well, I will tell you, as we are coming up on Father's Day, and that's maybe a good segue to introduce our guest. We've got a phenomenal guest today. Very excited to have Jim Crider from San Antonio area, Texas. I know that I think you live outside of there, but Jim, thanks for being a guest on our show today.
Yeah, Carter, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was actually on your website yesterday, checking out some of the things that you've done, and I know the Enrichers are going to get a chance to hear about your backstory, where you really started from, and most of our listeners already have heard our backstory, mine and Tim's. And Tim is a former wealth advisor, but he became a health advisor, and then we started, this show. But Jim, let's talk a little bit about, as we're sneaking up on Father's Day right around the corner, Tim is getting ready to go on this epic fishing trip. I'm assuming it's like a Father's Day, experience or whatever. But why don't you take us back a little ways from, you've been in the business for a little bit of a time and everything, but, what sort of got you into the customer engagement, financial advising, trying to be an advisor to those clients? Was there something that happened in high school? Was it like growing up? Most people don't think to themselves, oh, I'm going to be a financial planner one day. So what is it for you that really got you into the financial planning arena?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. There's definitely, I can look back at and see points throughout my life that I recognize that I enjoyed helping people have conversations about what's important to them in life. And I was always disturbed when I heard people say things were important to them, but did not see that reflected in their lifestyle. So for instance, growing up, it was pretty common for family or friends or my parents or people to say like, oh, I really wish we could have gone to Italy or Europe somewhere, but we never could afford it. And then I look up and I see a satellite on the roof, and I know they're paying a few $100 a month for TV. So this stuff like that. So looking back, I always this alignment of money and lifestyle seemed pretty apparent to me. And then, gosh, probably about 7 or so years ago, I left a job very abruptly, and that led to about 7 months of unemployment, which is miserable in and of itself. At that point, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I had no clue. I thought about teaching geography or, I don't know, being a firefighter. I didn't know what I wanted to do when I grew up. And also during that time, my wife was working, but financial struggles became a real conversation. And I started thinking about how money is the number one cause of divorce in the US. It's one of the top causes of suicide. And if I could help people actually have healthy conversations around their money and then align their money with what's important to them, that'd be a great way to spend my career. So frankly, I didn't know what that meant at the time. I didn't know what a CFP was or what financial planning was. I just knew I wanted to help people have good money conversations and then use their money in a way that makes sense for them in the best way possible. So that's how I got started.
So now you talked a little bit about maybe being a firefighter, maybe being a teacher. So I'm assuming there must have been something along the way that got you in thinking about doing those as a career.
Yeah, sort of all over the place. In a previous lifetime, and young newlyweds, my wife and I were actually both personal trainers. We used to live in Colorado, and we were both personal fitness trainers. So that was a good time. We both like working out. As far as being a geography teacher, I was a horrible student growing up. And the only class I remember or enjoyed was freshman year of high school geography. That teacher really made an impact on me, the way he was able to teach. And I thought that'd be a cool idea. Or a firefighter has good hours and seemed to get to hang out with other guys a lot. So I frankly, I was sort of just wandering, not sure what I wanted to do. And then, man, I tell my wife, her name's Kendra. I tell Kendra all the time that I'm so glad I stumbled into the career I have, because it's a perfect fit in every way. And I'm so glad I get to do this.
Yeah. So it's interesting because you are actually fairly new into the financial planning arena. And, for the enrichers that are listening to everything, I know that you're a young guy, right? But I know that there's a lot of credentials that you have to get. You have to learn a lot of things. And I know I've talked to a lot of my own financial advisors that we work with a lot here at CSI. And some of them, or the vast majority of them, are older. And that tends to give them a little bit more credibility or whatever. But, don't you think that's a bit of a myth on your age and your experience, even though experience, there's no better teacher than experience, but share with the enrichers on how you feel about your age and your experience.
Yeah, no, that's great. I've been in the industry for about 6 years, I guess. I started at Fidelity. I started answering phone calls on people forgetting their passwords to get to their 401k. And then I got some licenses and eventually got my CFP. And then I moved into a role where I worked specifically with physicians on retirement planning. I left there and I went to I was a lead advisor at an RIA. And then I left there and all the time trying to figure out exactly what I want to do. I've listened to, I'm not sure familiar with the Michael Kitz's Financial Advisor Success podcast. I have listened to every episode at least once. And yeah, the number one regret that I hear consistently is I wish I would have done this sooner. And I'm 31. And I figure that if I start my own practice now, there's no way I could have that regret, at least. So I'm nipping that in the bud. I decided I want to start my own firm. And frankly, who could I help better than people like me? So I work specifically with young families who want to be able to achieve early financial independence. So I'm helping families navigate, hey, we're having kids, spouse wants to stop working, so they can stay at home with the kids, and I want to start a business or go back to school, and I don't want to have to work till I'm 60. How do I do all of these things well? And the good news is those are the conversations my wife and I have every night. So I know I can look down the alleyway and anticipate the conversations that my clients will need to have with their clients and understand where they're going to come from psychologically, the pain points in those conversations, but also the more technical side of things in the financial planning and how that can help and apply to them. As far as age, I'm definitely young for the industry. I was actually at an event yesterday morning. I was telling my wife last night, it was sort of funny. I walked in and I think the average advisor's age is like 63-year-old white guy. I aspire to be an old white man one day. If not, something went really wrong. But I went to this event yesterday, and the median age is probably 58. There's about 200 advisors there, and everyone looks exactly the same. They're all in their late 50s, wearing a nice suit, nice tie, talking about their handicap on golf and the weather. It was so generic. Meanwhile, I'm there. Like, I live in a small town. I work from a lawn chair on a river pretty much every day. And so yesterday I got dressed up. Yeah, it's phenomenal. So yesterday I got dressed up to go to this conference. I threw on some jeans, my loafers, and a Bitcoin T-shirt. And man, that in and of itself, I definitely stood out. But frankly, I enjoy being the young guy in the industry. I relish being different, not for difference sake. I'm not some guy who's gonna, do things that are ridiculous just so I can stand out. But I see it as an opportunity, being young. So yeah, age. I look at older advisors for wisdom. I listen to all these podcasts and seek guidance and mentorship and coaching for their wisdom, but certainly don't want to be discounted because of my age. I'm the only person I've ever come across that after passing the CFP test, I just reread my books just because I like this stuff. So yeah, I'm young, but I'm not dumb.
Yeah. Well, so again, I have heard that many, many times. And it's funny because I've had advisors who were like, they were young, maybe even in their 30s, that they're dealing with the senior market, right? So boomers and seniors. So for them, it's difficult. I think maybe for you, it's because your targeted audience tends to be around your same age, probably makes it a little bit easier. But the interesting dynamic of an advisor / agent, insurance advisor, financial planner that's in their early 30s, but they're trying to work with someone in their 60s, that tended to be a little bit more difficult. So maybe you understood that, and that's why your target audience is what it is.
Yeah. No matter what I do, I try to use my assets or my characteristics and traits and strengths as an asset. So the fact that I'm young, so before starting my own firm where I work with specifically young families, so being young is definitely an asset because I'll navigate their life with them. I'm not going to retire in 6 years. I'm going to have to start over again. But even before doing this, I was at another firm that really served your traditional financial planning clients. So like pre-retirees and retirees. And I used my age as an asset there. I had a handful of people come at me saying, "Hey, this other guy has a lot more gray hair than you. I think we're going to go with him." Well, hey, that's great. I definitely understand where you're coming from, and you have plenty of years of experience. I just want to make sure you're considering the fact that in probably about 6 or 7 years from now, you're going to be interviewing another financial advisor, and probably a couple years after that. I'm not sure how much longer you're going to be around for. And then also we're going to look at succession planning. So considering how this advisor is going to work with your family once you pass away. So even positioning my age as an asset for older clients, you can certainly do that. Maybe I'm just confident though. I think it takes some hubris to start a business. So here we are.
Well, I think I was just listening to something just this morning that it could have been Robert Kiyosaki, who I've gotten so much great things from him. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And if you've never read that book, it's a strong suggestion to read that if you're a reader. And enrichers out there, if you haven't read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, make sure you do. But it's like the 1% of entrepreneurs, they're never going to stay long-term being an employee because they just don't have the same mindset. But it takes a lot of gumption or a lot of huevos, right, in order to make that leap and determination that, you know what, I can do this on my own. And I know that my co-host, Tim James, is in that same boat as I am, as are you, Jim.
Oh, yeah, it's you have to have that gumption to say, I think I can do this better. Maybe not in general, but for some small segment of people, for some specific need, I can do it better than anyone else. And if I didn't believe that, I wouldn't do this because I believe I have to do what's best for my clients. And part of that is making sure that I'm the best person for my client. So I better know that I am the best one for them. And again, that's arrogance. But it's also, I think it's confidence enough to push me out and say, let's go for it.
Yeah. Hey, I want to actually ask you something because, my wife, whose birthday was yesterday, just turned 43. So
yay, Christina.
I know, right? She's like, this morning we woke up and we were outside sitting, next to the pool, having some coffee and everything. She's like, well, it's official. I'm 43. And I was like, baby, you don't look a day over 28. But I am curious. You and your wife Kendra, is that what you said her name is?
Yes, sir.
So you guys used to be physical personal trainers. Is that what you're talking about? Because my wife, she, we've got our home gym, and she doesn't do any of that personal training, but that's what her passion is. I think she went to Baylor University, which is just down the street from you a little ways, or up the road. I can't remember which way, actually, from San Antonio. But she was a sports science major and everything. And I'm just curious, what was that like? That dynamic with you and your wife being personal trainers?
Oh, it was a lot of fun. It was we got married pretty young, so we were in our really early 20s, and I guess it was an opportunity to try things and just get creative. So we exercised every morning together, and it started off just a friend and I, and then my wife joined, and then within a few months there was a whole band of people that I was leading exercising every morning, and I thought, I should probably get a little bit better about what I'm doing. So that's why I went and got some credentials for personal training, and I said, well, I want to try doing this on my own and actually making money off of that. So my wife, she got inspired and she did the same thing. So she got her some certificates. Then she actually went and worked for a big box gym. But I guess me being me, went off and started my own thing there. So sort of like your wife, she works out at her home gym. So that's the type of client I focused on. I work specifically with people who are maybe intimidated by gym culture. So I worked with people at private gyms and home gyms and parks and such. So it was a lot of fun. It was experimental for sure. I wouldn't call it a career. It was more of a let's just go for it. We didn't have any kids at the time. So worst case scenario, it doesn't work out, and we were already poor anyways.
You're like, any way to bring in some revenue, right?
Exactly. And I don't regret it at all.
That's awesome. Well, I know we're coming up on a break here and everything, and we're going to get into like what your practice is looking like as you're building out and everything here pretty soon. But Tim James, do you have anything that you want to ask Jim, since he does have the bit of a background in the fitness arena?
Well, I was going to save that for the third segment, but okay. The one thing that I would say about the age thing before we wrap up here is that I dealt with that too when I was a financial advisor and stuff like that. I remember we did a nice dinner presentation at a really fancy restaurant, and we were taking our, people fill out these packets, and we're collecting the packets from them to book appointments. And this lady looked at me, she's like, "How old are you anyway?" And it was just like, but it's one of those things. Yeah, you might lose a couple people because they have that societal programming, but if we look at reality, is that most people are they're gonna retire financially unstable, and in any industry you've got maybe 3 to 5% of people that have a heart and they really have their head screwed on straight, and they're really into continuing education, and they're really into results. So and it doesn't really matter what age that person is. What really matters is their intelligence and their heart and their ability to connect and work with people and help them through what their needs. And I think Jim's obviously one of those guys that anybody at any age would be happy to have him manage their money. Just because somebody's got gray hair doesn't mean anything. There's a lot of shysters out there that have Bernie Madoff that have taken people's money for a ride, and he had lots of gray hair, right? So it really boils down to the person's character. And when you have somebody with good character, if they do make a mistake, most likely they'll make it right and they'll fix it. So anyway, so that's it. So we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we're going to get into more questions about Jim's practice. And just to point out to the enrichers here, Jim is actually the first person that we've had on that does not have an association yet with CSI Financial. Does not yet. So not an attorney working, not another financial advisor working with CSI Financial yet. So this is a very interesting dynamic because we have somebody here that's new to CSI. And we'll talk more about that too when we get back.
Are you concerned about being able to get all of your affairs in order during this trying time? Are you troubled by what would happen if you ever became incapacitated? Maybe you've been procrastinating in the past to address these issues, but now, more than ever before, you know just how important it is to get everything documented. Well, don't worry, because we can get you taken care of right from the comfort of your own home. Welcome to the revolutionary My Life Card Plan estate plan processing platform, home of the last estate plan you'll ever need. We are very pleased you are here, and rest assured, we can offer you a complete estate planning experience regardless of where in the 50 states you may live. Our unique transformational system combines efficiency, convenience, and professional support at levels you never thought possible for setting up your estate plan. Moreover, we will provide you with powerful, user-friendly dynamics that put you in total control of your plan throughout your lifetime. Call us today at 888-316-6040 or go to www.csifinancialgroup.com, and our team of specialists will be there to assist you every step of the way.
What's up, Enrichers? Tim James here with my co-host Carter Wilcox, and today we've got Jim Crider in the house, financial planner. He's got a whole bunch of designations he worked his butt off for, but more importantly, he's just a really good guy. He's I can already tell he's a hard worker, smart guy, and he has his clients' best interest at heart. So, Carter, why don't we, or Jim, why don't you just get into like what your practice looks like, and then what you're looking at as far as CSI Financial and possibly working with them.
Yeah. So my firm itself, I launched just earlier this year. I'm an independent RIA, I guess fee only. I work specifically with young families who want to achieve early financial independence. So my clients fall between, let's say, late 20s to early 40s, primarily married couples. I'd say average is about 2 kids, and they're not necessarily in a rush to retire, but they want work and time optionality. So that's really where I come in and help my clients, is helping them navigate not having to work forever, but also not missing the things that are important to them now. The name of my firm is called Intentional Living, FP, as in financial planning. And that's really what I help my clients do, is be intentional with the things that they with their lives, from the actions they take and the decisions they make sure that's actually anchored into the things that they say that are valuable to them. So that's a general overview of what I do.
Yeah. Well, and so I was on your website yesterday, Jim, because I wanted to get a little better idea. And, for those enrichers, quick backstory, Jim and I got introduced about 8-10 months ago as I was looking for guests to come on to our podcast before it was even launched. And now we're coming up on episode, I think, like number 20 or whatever. So it's been a lot of fun. Obviously, Tim being a former wealth advisor turned health advisor now, it's been great to connect and help our enrichers understand the connection between wealth and health. It's really important. And a lot of that has to do with, your mental health as well. So I think, Jim, why don't you talk a little bit about, because I saw on your website, you talk a lot about why you do the things that you do. And I think that's what your intentional living, that's the intention of, and calling it intentional living, but share a little bit more with the enrichers about, that dynamic and that sort of that why structure.
Yeah. I guess I could put the way I structure all relationships with my clients, it could go into a flow chart. So it's anchored in your values. So I primarily want to understand what is truly important to the families that I'm working with. The values being the underlying why. Those things don't tend to change. Like if you're someone who's driven by having time with people you love, or by serving others, or those sort of things, like that will stay consistent over life. So I want to understand, what are those things? What's the values? Okay. That leads into the goals. Goals change. That's completely fine. I'm sure, you guys, what you are pursuing today looks a little bit different than 5 years ago. And I would venture to say that in 5 years, it will look different than it did today. But I do understand with my clients, well, if these are the values you have, how do those influence the goals that we're setting? So again, values, goals, and then from there, we understand decisions. Everything in life requires a decision. There's always trade-offs. Everything has an opportunity cost. I want my clients to think through the decisions they're making because you will make a decision intentionally or unintentionally. And then finally, taking action, making sure we're actually doing what aligns with all those things. So essentially, I help my clients identify what's important to them, the physical things that they want to align with those. So for instance, it's important that I spend time with my family. That could look like tucking my kids in bed at night, or for me, I want to have a house in Jackson Hole by my mid-40s. So the time with family is a value. The goal would be a house in Jackson Hole. Decisions to make that means I can't spend all my money now, or there's no way I'm going to afford a house in Jackson Hole. And the actions are, okay, well, how do I actually align my resources so I can achieve those things? So that's what I do with my clients.
It's so interesting that you say that, because one of the things that we work with our advisors about is something that we call a form, their formula. Form is actually an acronym, FORM. And we teach them to help to communicate with their clients about a lot of what you're talking about. And I don't know if you've ever heard about the Pareto Principle or not. It's or the Pareto system. The 80-20 rule is a Pareto Principle. But this is where I learned a lot of my mastermind stuff with working with advisors to help to the things about the psychology of sales, if you will, right, wrong, or different, right? I mean, you just got there talking about it. Your why leads to how you're doing certain things. But this form stands for family, right? Your family legacy and everything. The F, the O is that a lot of our advisors that we work with, their clients strive for a work optional lifestyle, right? Where if they want to work, great, they work. If they don't, they don't, but I think everybody wants to have a work optional lifestyle. Mm-hmm. I don't care if you're in your 20s or if you're in your 60s, right? And then the R is really about the recreational bucket list that people have. Like you talked about it earlier, maybe it was pre-show or it was in the first segment, talking about, you want to help clients, help them get out of their own way and their regrets on what they didn't do. Well, I would wish I could have gone to Taormina, right? Which is in Italy. I don't know if you guys know where that's at, but it's a very nice place in Italy that I was blessed to be able to go to. But, but then you're like, but I see them, they've got, 2 cars and they're trying to live up to the Joneses next door. And they could have actually done that had they spent their money or saved their money a little bit differently, right? So the recreational bucket list is what the R stands for. And then, so that's that's sort of like their why, right? And then this Venn diagram that we create, the M is just the how, the money. That's just how you are going to be able to do those things. And anyway, that's one of the acronyms. And there's a whole class around that we teach advisors on how to be able to articulate that to their clients about that's what they're really trying to do. And it feels like, even without you learning any of that stuff, that feels like your why, that's sort of what your centerpiece is of what kind of clients you're trying to work with and help them understand that that's really the best interest that you have at heart for them.
Exactly. I can't remember who says it all the time, but essentially the way I view this is, my job is to help my clients live the life they want to live. And their money is nothing more than a tool or a resource that's there to help them do that. So how can we most efficiently and effectively use that tool to achieve what's actually important to them in life? And if I can do that, then that's how I'm helping them. I guess I'm sort of a math guy. I never thought of myself as a math guy until I'm actually doing this stuff. But finding tax savings or investments or whatever, that doesn't excite me. But helping someone save 20 grand in taxes one year is fun, because I see that allows them to do that extra trip with their parents before their parents are unable to travel. So that's exciting for me. So even I constantly have to do this myself, and I do it with clients, is going back to, it's not about what's right in front of you. It's the thing that serves. And if you can stay anchored in that underlying value, the being with people you love, or work optionality, or whatever that is, if you can stay anchored in that, it makes the doing a lot less painful, because you are constantly motivated behind what's actually the mission here, rather than like, my gosh, I have to do this paperwork again a day. Like, that's serving a greater purpose. Keep that in mind.
Yeah. So I just love your philosophy. I love the intentional living, idea. I mean, it's a philosophically, aligned completely with that. When I started CSI Financial Group out of my garage, right, with my home computer, my cell phone, dogs barking in the background, sound familiar, right? I knew that I wanted to set out and do something differently than everybody else in the industry. I knew that I could do it better, right? And I really set out to do 3 things better than anybody else. Shameless plug, I guess, right now. But I wanted to, number one, elevate the client experience. Now, we are advisors to advisors, right? So we work through the advisor network on a national basis. But I wanted to be able to create things that could elevate the client experience. And when I talk about the client, I don't mean the advisors. I'm talking about the advisor's client. So develop things around certain aspects of what an advisor needs, because I spent time out in the advisory field and I knew what was missing. So number one, elevate the client experience, which number 2 leads to what I call professional contrast, right? A differentiator. Jim, if your prospective clients ask you the question, what makes you different, right? You probably have an idea of what to tell them and things of that nature. So everything we've built is to be able to reinforce what makes our advisors different, that professional contrast that we call it. And then number 3, I wanted to make sure that we could competitor proof those ideal clients that you're trying to work with, because your process, I would imagine, when you're doing some sort of, we call it a fit agenda, right? Are we a good fit for one another? When you're having these initial conversations with clients, however you're getting them, whether that's, seminars or referrals or introductions is what I like to refer to them as, because there is a huge difference between being introduced and being referred, right? Mm-hmm. But I would imagine that, a lot of that's a lot of work, right? Client acquisition is where it all begins and ends, right? Without the very best, solutions you have don't matter if you don't have clients to share that with, right? So the third thing, to go back to that, is we want to be able to competitor proof those ideal clients for the advisors we work with, because you do work so hard in acquiring those clients, and it's a stiff competition out there, right?
Oh, for sure.
So you have to deal with that on a regular basis, right? So that is one of those key aspects. But you said something earlier that I think that potentially we could probably help with right out of the gate, and it's about the values. We purchased a company fairly recently called legacystories.org. And what Legacy Stories is, it's a hub where your clients, you could be able to give away these, what we call family vaults. And it's about their values, to pass on their values, not just about passing on their valuables. Of course, you have to have an estate plan and putting all that stuff together. And that's why that's our foundational approach. But I think that it would be interesting to be able to share with you. And by the way, Enrichers, another shameless plug, go to legacystories.org if you're interested in getting your own vault. There's a small cost to it, but we can actually waive that for all of our advisor partners that work with us. But I think that would be interesting to be able to share with you, Jim, offline, on how you could be able to add that as a value add for your, own value add proposition, maybe.
I thought that was actually really cool, that legacy stuff, because you could sit down with a camera and leave a personal message to your wife. You could leave personal messages to your kids, grandkids, educational stuff. And maybe you want to say, hey, look, if Johnny, hey, if you ever want to, start a business, never get a business partner. Okay. Never get a business partner. And here's why. And then tell your experience and what happened. And if you are going to get a business partner, get a lawyer, okay, and draw it all up and get a buy-sell agreement and go through everything and make sure they bring more to the table than you. Because, it's just share your advice with them. Or maybe it's hey, I really kicked ass with finances, but you know what I really missed the boat? I really didn't work on my relationship with your mom that well, right? I really didn't, or I didn't work on my spiritual practice, and I wish I would have spent more time on that, had more balance in my life, or whatever. You can actually share and leave these video messages, or type stuff up, or write letters and leave it in this legacy vault, which is really cool, because not only are you passing on just your cash, but you're passing on your knowledge and your love and your caring and everything, other things that you've accumulated that are just as valuable, if not more valuable than, a leftover IRA.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, Tim. And I know we just had Dennis Stack, who started Legacy Stories, on our podcast fairly recently. And the reason why we purchased it was because it was such a huge value, and he was wanting to retire and get out of it. But to your point, there are, statistically speaking, people care a lot more about passing on their values than they actually do about passing on their valuables. So, Jim, are your parents both still alive? You're still fairly young, so I'll make an assumption they are.
Yes, sir.
But, we hear on a regular basis how much somebody would love to just one more time hear their mom's voice or hear their dad's voice. And that's what this vault really enables our advisor partners to do, is that it's a hub for them to put all their stuff in the cloud, and there's plenty of room to be able to, all the data that you want to be able to put in there and everything. But I believe, and, Jim, I'll ask you, don't you think that a lot of people would love to have, one central location to pass on all their values and their stories and things that their kids are great? I mean, think about this. You'll be able to pass on your voice and your knowledge and everything to people you'll have never met before. Your great grandchildren, right? That is almost invaluable as far as I'm concerned. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, that's really cool. I like your verbiage, even just the pass on your values, not just your valuables. And it is sort of funny. Like, we obviously throughout life, you can give your kids things and give people things. And during your lifetime, you try to instill your values. So not just, you can give your kid $50 to go out and have a good time, but you also want to instill them values. So, hey, here's how we behave. Or here's things that we believe. But then when we die, there's not a great way of continuing to instill those values in a succinct manner versus, your valuables. Like, that's why you have a will and your beneficiaries and a trust or whatever. That's a single place to say, here's what you get and here's how it can be used. And yeah, as far as continuing to be able to do that on the values side of things, that's really neat.
Yeah, well, I've got some supporting stuff that I'll share with you too. Again, offline. But they're, Allianz did a study. I've got another study from Merrill Lynch. I think it was Merrill Lynch. Some of the things I've read in there from some of the surveys, it's unbelievable. And that's why I do what I do, right? I'm doing what I'm doing because ultimately at some point in time, the inevitable is going to happen for all of us, right? So proactive planning, and that includes being able to proactively put your values somewhere and proactively put your valuables somewhere, right? That's why we call it estate planning. And so those are things that we can obviously talk about offline, but our enrichers have been hearing about a lot of these things that CSI Financial Group brings to the table, for almost 20 episodes now. So we can definitely have that conversation, but the philosophical alignment that we have, I think that was our initial connection in the first place. I think that we saw a lot of things the same way. And, your clients are the same as our clients are, right? They do business with people they know, they like, and they trust, but they have to like them too, right? I mean, that's a pretty important area of business development and business growth. And I can tell already, I know we've been successful over here because people just like doing business with us. I'll bet your clients, if you did a survey of all of them, I'll bet they'll all say, the best reason why I like doing business with Jim is I just like him.
I hope so. Yeah, I try to maintain certainly a level of trust and candor, and that's important to me. Is obviously being a professional and maintaining that, but also someone they know they can trust and go to.
Yeah.
Well, I think would be interesting, Carter and Jim, is that since Jim isn't with CSI Financial, Jim, if you decide to connect with CSI Financial to help help you to help your business grow, if that's a decision you make. I think it'd be really interesting to have you back on in 6 months or a year after you've worked with CSI Financial, and then say what's changed. If that ends up transpiring, if it doesn't, no big deal, and no pressure here, because it's got to be a fit or whatever. But I think that would be very interesting. So we're gonna take a quick break, guys. And when we get back, we're gonna flip the script. We're gonna let Jim ask me any question he wants about health. We'll be right back.
You want the absolute best for yourself, and you want it to be easy. That's why we created Green 85. It helps with detoxifying the body gently. We're proud it's chemical-free, unlike almost all other supplements you'll find. Bottom line, Green 85 will get you healthier. We look forward to hearing what Green 85 did for you.
To get this product and our other amazing products, go to chemicalfreebody.com. That's chemicalfreebody.com.
What's up, Enrichers? Tim James here. I'm back with my co-host Carter Wilcoxon. We got Jim Crider in the house, financial planner extraordinaire. And hey, Jim, you had a background in being a personal trainer, so that's really cool. So you're kind of in the health industry there. You know a lot more about it than most people we've had on. A lot of the people we've had on are just financial planners that wear suits and talk about their golf game. So
Sorry if I offended anyone earlier.
It is what it is, man. They're proud of it. They like it.
Hey, if it's any consolation, I am a golfer myself, and it's amazing that I've done more business on the golf course because a lot of those guys, that's what they do.
Yeah, that's fair.
We actually had we had a guy in our mortgage office. That was his marketing plan. He played golf with people every morning. That was it. He would just, and even if he didn't have anybody to show up with, he'd just show up by himself. He'd get thrown in with 2 or 3 guys. And then by the end of 18 holes, business cards and money was flowing. It's just, that was his business model. That's how he did it. So anyway, okay, Jim, what questions do you have for me in regards to health? Anything goes.
Man. Okay. Let's see. So I feel like I'm old already. I don't know the last time my lower back didn't hurt. And I'm trying to figure out what type of professional to visit. I've identified, I think I've never been flexible. Like, I haven't been able to touch my toes as long as I can remember. I was 4 doing karate. I couldn't touch my toes. So I think it's a matter of tight hamstrings, tight hips, and then underdeveloped gluteus medius. I'm not going to show you my butt, but like, I think it's like lower back / upper glutes just is like always tight. And then it hadn't done it in a couple of years, but probably about 8 years ago, every year, for about 6 years, my back would spasm to the point where like there was literally zero curvature in my back. And I like getting out of bed would take 45 minutes. My wife had to put my socks on for me. And people thought it was funny because I'd hobble like an old man. They thought it was funny until I showed them my belly button was like 4 inches to the right and up. So yeah, I'm not going to ask you to diagnose me, but do you think this is a like massage? Do you think it's a occupational physical therapist? Is it a underdeveloped muscle I should try to work on? Like, where? I don't even know where to start on this.
So I'm assuming you have not stopped working out.
Correct.
Do you do squats, deadlifts?
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of like compound movements.
Okay, cool. And are you putting heavy weights on every other time at least, or pretty heavy?
Yeah, I follow, like, I'll do some more just like general like athletic training, and then I'll go into hypertrophy and then like strength training, and I focus mostly on hypertrophy and strength. So I usually try to lift relatively heavy. Okay. So what I'm going to give you, I'll give you a recipe to get that handled. Okay. So the second thing that I'm going to talk about is just reducing inflammation, right? Because you have inflammation there big time, and people have it all over the place anyway. So we're going to show you how to reduce that. And that's going to help immediately and long term.
but we have to get to the underlying cause. So it's like you're strengthening. You're like a football player, like, right? So you have really strong muscles from these compound exercises and stuff like that. And there's nothing wrong with strong muscles. But I remember a long time ago, before I got into the industry, I was literally on a plane flight to Hawaii with my wife at the time, and we were going for our honeymoon. And I was reading like a Sports Illustrated magazine or something on the plane. And there was like this 350-pound NFL football lineman in a yoga studio doing yoga with all these yoga gals. And I was reading the article, and what they were saying was in the NFL is that they were getting injured, and they were ending football players were ending their careers. And it wasn't because their muscles weren't strong, because their joints, ligaments, and tendons were snapping, basically. Okay, that's where the injuries were, because they weren't flexible. Right. Mm-hmm. When you're a little kid, you can grab your legs, and, it's called happy baby. You can grab, you were a little kid, you moved around at one point in time. I was the exact same as you growing up. It's like I was into sports and stretching. I'm like, stretching, whatever. You do a little stretch and let's get to business. Right.
Yeah.
And you just forget about it. And so what ended up happening was these NFL football players started doing yoga. And why would they do that? Because it made them injury proof. So they could get an extra year or 2 or 3 years of playing time. Well, Jesus, one extra year could be millions of dollars. So, for $5 million, the guy drops the ego and he's in the yoga studio. But what ends up happening is when you get into the yoga studio, you start realizing that this is a form of medicine that you should be applying to your life long term. Like, this is medicine. Like I got drawn to yoga just through a friend one time, and I did it for stress reduction because I had such a stressful life. And when I got done with yoga, I had no stress. And I also felt younger every time that I did it, right? So, and I actually became a yoga instructor. And a yoga that I would recommend you look into in the beginning, very simple, it's called yin yoga. These are 3 to 10 minute stretching postures. And you'll think it's kind of boring maybe in the beginning and whatever, but it's work. It's work to do. So you'll be in a pose just like, just sitting there like butterfly pose for a minute, and you're like, this is stupid. And then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, then the fascia starts opening up. Because what ends up happening in yin yoga, which is really cool, is your fascia, which is the largest organ in the body, not the skin. That's a misnomer. But the fascia, it's like taffy. Okay. And if you take taffy and you pull it really quick, it's going to snap. All right. But if you take taffy and you gently apply pressure to it, that taffy will slowly come apart, right? We've all been to the taffy shop at the beach at the, whatever. So it's the same thing with your fascia. So the reason why we have to do 3 to 10 minute stretching postures is because it takes 90 seconds of a gentle stretch or gentle pressure against the fascia before it starts to open up. So the first 90 seconds is just getting to the point where you can actually start getting the work done. Okay. So you're into it 90 seconds, then all of a sudden, boom, now the fascia is going to start opening up. Now, what you want to do is you want to make sure that you're not doing anything extremely painful. You want to be right on the edge, not any sharp pains. If it's like that, then back off a little bit. You just want to be kind of on the edge, a little bit of discomfort, and you stay there. And then you just relax into the pose and you really focus on your breath. In fact, with yin yoga, the most important thing of the yoga is the breath. This is the main focus. The stretching component is secondary, right? So you're going to be thinking about in through the nose. And if you want to build up heat, it's in through the nose, out through the nose, in through the nose, out through the nose. That's going to be the beginning of the yin yoga. And then towards the end of the yin yoga, in through the nose, out through the mouth, and that'll start cooling the body down. So you want to create this warming up or heating of the body by in through the nose, out through the nose in the beginning. So, a simple stretch for you is just doing something called forward fold. And what you'll do is you just stand there with your feet, about shoulder width apart, athletic position, and you're going to bend your knees as much as you need to bend over and put your chest on your thighs. You might not even be able to get to that point. And you're just going to hang. You're just going to hang there. Right? You're just going to hang, and that's it. And remember, you're going to set your clock for like 3 minutes in the beginning at least, and you're going to realize that in 90 seconds, it's going to take you to warm up your fascia before the healing begins. And then after that, that's why you want to get at least another 90 seconds in of that stretching. And then what you're going to do afterwards is you're going to come up very slowly because blood's going to rush up. And for those of you, just be very careful when you do this, because when you come up the first time, you might be a little dizzy. So, be ready for that. So, but that forward fold is a very, very good exercise for your lower back. So what you can do is you can just type in yin yoga lower back exercises and put together a little repertoire. There's tons of yin yoga like on YouTube and stuff like that. Follow a bunch of different instructors and find one that resonates with you and then practice it. Now, to tie this down even more, I want to talk about the Shaolin monks. You've seen those guys? They can spin around and kick you in the face, and you can't hurt them. Yeah. Well, I saw an interview one time when this master comes out, and the master said that the Shaolin monks that practice the karate version will lose their power somewhere in their 60s and the 70s. But the Shaolin masters that practice the version of karate, and they also practice this version of yoga, which is constant stretching of the ligaments and the tendons. You'll see them there where they're like in the mornings, they're like twisting their feet and pulling their toes apart. And then really, they're always stretching. Those masters never lose their power. And these are the guys that are like 100 years old, and you can be your size and you go over and you couldn't do nothing to them. They'll kick your ass. And they're 100. And why is that? Because, and when I saw that and I heard that, I was like, it really clicked with me. The thing with the football players, me doing the yoga myself and feeling younger. Then I heard that Shaolin monk thing. I'm like, I need to do that. Now, I also had another experience, Dr. Brian Clement of the Hippocrates Health Institute. And he said, up till 35 years old, you have to be stretching 3 days a week. Have to. After 35, we have to stretch daily. Have to do daily. Because what you'll see is as people get older, what happens to them? They start shrinking back down, right? They get tighter and tighter.
As we all sit up.
I know, right?
Yeah. It's pressure. So we have to, think about animals do this instinctively. A cat gets up from sleeping. What's the first thing it does? It stretches, right? Cat stretch. It's actually a stretch that we do in yoga. It's called cat and cow, where you go like this and it's cat. And then cow is when you sink, your belly down. And it's cat and cow as you're breathing in and breathing out, in, out, in, out. You're doing this cat-cow exercise or downward dog. You've heard of that. What do dogs do? They stretch. The first thing they do, they really stretch and they're stretching. Every single time a dog or a cat gets up, they're doing yoga, right? So we have to really get, as men, we have to drop our ego and get smart about this. And also, if you want to, you can look at the science of it. It's a very smart thing to do because it is going to help you become injury-proof. It's going to help you stay young and vital, so that when you do reach those older ages, you see the guys that are really young and loose when they take a golf swing and it's like a full swing, and then the old guys down there, they just kind of like, and they just take, they can't move that much, right? They can't get the whip into the guys. If they would learn yoga and practice yoga, they would add so much yards to their drive. They would be amazed, because it's about getting that youthfulness back. So for you, that would be what I would really share. I would heal yourself with yoga. And I can't tell you how many people with back injuries, that's the reason why they got into it. Now, as far as a practitioner goes, I would look into somebody that's called Rolfing, Rolfing. It was a technique developed by Ida Rolf. And I would look into that. And I'd also find a good chiropractor. And just be careful though, because to me, most likely you've got like these ligaments and tendons that are really tight and pulling. And some chiropractors, they'll be able to go in and do you're out of alignment, and they can adjust you through force and get you back in. But the problem is that those tight muscles and the ligaments and stuff are going to pull it right back out. So you're going to have to heal yourself slowly through stretching and that. And then using somebody like a massage, like a Rolfing agent to get in there. But I would also talk to chiropractors, and then you might need some extra assistance there, right? So for mechanically, that's what I do. Now, do you have any questions before we get into the inflammation component?
No, I appreciate all that. It definitely resonates. The last time I back spasmed, it's been a few years. This is I'm currently in the longest it's been since this first happened. So this is happening regularly. And now it's been a few years. And at that point, I decided, I was like, man, I got to stretch more. Growing up, sort of like you said, it was not cool to stretch. Like it pains me. I go to the gym and I see guys like high school kids walk in fresh off the street, sit down, throw a couple plates on the bench press and try to rep it out. It's like, golly. But that's I decided, like, I have to do this. So I started stretching every night for about 45 minutes, stretch, foam roll, shove a lacrosse ball in my hip joints. Oh, it feels so good. But yeah, I need to figure out another step to take, because I'm still, I'm not injured per se, but I'm definitely not well. Yeah. So I'll definitely start doing that.
Another thing that I would recommend is that you get one of these. These are called spunk mats. Here, I'll flip it around. These are acupressure mats. Do you see the little little pokey things there? Right. These things are freaking amazing. Everybody should have one in their house. So even when I travel, I like put this on my seat when I travel, and then I pull my shirt up in the back, and this thing's massaging my back the entire time. That when I get out of the car, my back isn't tight. It doesn't hurt. So these things, you can step on these on the floor. They will stimulate all the meridian points in your feet. But this is something, acupuncture is something I would also recommend for your back. But a lot of times people don't have the time or the money to go enough. So an acupressure mat is something you can have in your home, and you can lay on this for 10 to 30 minutes a couple times a day. This is something we've been sharing with our clients for years for people with lower back issues. I mean, this thing is like freaking magic, unbelievable tactic. And these things, you can get this and another mini mat, and it comes with another little ball for like $60 one time. This is an asset that you definitely want to have in your space at your home. You and your wife are going to love this thing, and you can put it on your face. You could wrap your arm in it, like if you have a tennis elbow. I mean, it's got a gazillion different types of uses with these acupressure mats. Okay, so now let's talk about reducing inflammation. One thing, are you familiar with grounding or earthing?
No.
Okay, so we've talked about this before. Like if I prick your finger and I take a blood sample and I look at it under live blood cell microscopy, I can see your cells kind of moving around doing their thing. Now, if I take your shoes off and I stick you barefoot or naked out on the dirt for about 4 hours and then bring you back in and then prick your finger and test the blood again, your blood's going to be racing around like it's sped up so much. We've increased blood flow. How do we do that? We put you back into contact with the mothership, which is Mother Earth. And anytime we're the only creatures that, in the 60s, we developed like rubber and plastics. We started wearing rubber-soled shoes. We got rubber-soled tires. We live on the first, second floor. We have broken our connection with Mother Earth. And the millisecond you come into contact with Mother Earth, your body gets enveloped in this energetic field, and it starts charging your cells and increasing blood flow. The second that you remove yourself from Earth, inflammation begins. And inflammation is the precursor to all disease. So we have got, like, if you see my thing right here, I am grounding right now. And I also have it down below. You see this red thing right here? I'm plugged into the third prong. And that is what is plugged. Whoops. I'm going to knock everything over, but I'm going to show you this. I keep showing everybody this, but it's like this thing is, you see where it's plugged in there? Yeah. So the mat itself is actually plugged into my electrical grid. And it's pulling, and what it's doing is it's pulling the Earth's natural frequency, because outside of every home and every commercial building, there's an iron rod driven down into the ground that runs into that third prong. That's the foundation of the electrical grid. That frequency that we need can then be piped through our electrical system into these mats, into sheets that you can sleep on with silver threads, or pads that you can sleep on. And you can literally be grounding in your bed at night while you're sleeping. I have bare feet right now. I'm touching a grounding pad at the bottom, and I also have it on my hands. So I'm grounding 24/7, the best I can. I'm not always, if I'm not here at the desk or in the bed, but a large percentage of my life is sitting here working and sleeping. So at least I'm getting grounding there. You see that? So that is medicine right there. And it's pretty much, once you have this set up, it's free, or just go outside. I mean, who doesn't like to take their feet or get barefooted, right? Feels freaking great, right? And that's because that is a natural medicine that we're missing out on. So that's one thing. Drinking tons of water is going to be very, very important. Making sure that water is purified. If you're on city tap water, it really needs to be restructured, because the city taps are very high pressure in pipes, and the molecules get coagulated. They get too big, and you can't really absorb them that well. You're just going to drink a lot of water and pee a lot out. The clusters are too big to get through the intestinal lining. So the water really needs to be restructured today. If you're on city tap water, we have got to get that into the system, into the cell, into the lymphatic system, so it can do its thing and let the blood, get the inflammation out. Okay. We also have products like our Green 85. I know Carter, this is one of his favorites. This is a very alkalizing, nutrient dense. It replaces the 85% of the nutrients missing in the soil. it will reduce inflammation. But probably the biggest product we have for inflammation is turmeric 100. This is a micronized turmeric product. It's 95% curcuminoids, which is the active in the turmeric root that actually reduces inflammation in the body. But we micronized it, meaning we made it mechanically very tiny, and we suspended it in a liquid. So what we ended up here with is a product that's 185 times more absorbable and anti-inflammatory than any other turmeric product on the market, because it does not go through the digestive tract. It goes right through the mucous membrane into the body, into the bloodstream. And in 5 minutes of taking it, your whole entire cardiovascular system is being doused with these microscopic curcuminoids. So you're actually going to reduce cellular inflammation, and then the cells will eat it, and they will take it to your inflammation in your bad back or your headaches or your arthritis or your arthritic knees or whatever somebody's dealing with. It'll actually vasculate your arteries, veins, and capillaries too, reduce inflammation there, so you'll actually have more blood flow, right? So lots of water, drinking lots of good purified restructured water, taking a really good turmeric product, and then there's and then the grounding mat. I think those would be things. And then the last thing that I think would be very awesome is getting into an infrared sauna. Are you taking saunas yet?
No, I'm not.
Yeah, so you need to get yourself one of these little saunas. Carter's still needs to get his.
Yeah.
But I've been a sauna dealer for over 8.5 years. I just a few months ago I dropped my I sold my $5,400 badass wooden sauna, and I bought this little $1,900 unit. They have a $1,300 and a $1,900 unit. It doesn't matter which one you get; they're both just as good. They have the same guts in them. And this sauna is it's ridiculous. It's the best sauna on the planet. It's like 6 times better than the one that I had. And it's because of the processors these Taiwanese people have developed. They've literally cracked the code, and they're delivering 98% pure infrared, which is supposedly not even possible. There's a natural law called Planck's law. They broke it. It says you can't get more than like 40 or 50% pure infrared. They're at 98%. End result is massive inflammation reduction in the body, massive amounts of increasing blood flow, literally shrinking the blood cells, shrinking the water molecules so they can go deeper out into the capillaries. So it actually can go back and start rejuvenating the skin at the deepest levels. And it helps people sleep and pain, inflammation, just all kinds of stuff, and killing viruses and bacteria and mold and yeast and fungus and parasites, things we're exposed to. So that sauna is a very powerful addition. So if you do one or all of the things that I just shared today, I would be very surprised within 6 months if you have much of back issues anymore.
Dang. Okay.
So there's some work to do there, brother.
And the good news is, Jim, that obviously we've recorded this podcast. So all those things that you said, you're like, okay, I can. Now, what do you say first, and then second, and third?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And you can call me if you want to. You can just go to thehealthysauna.com if you want to get one of those saunas.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, or just call me. Card, I'll give you my cell phone. You can call me, and I'll help you.
Yeah, it was so funny too, because I remember whenever something happened earlier in the year last year, I can't remember exactly what it was, but some type of world event happened, and it feels like it's still going on. I don't know. Is that ringing a bell to anybody? But I remember early on, right? I don't even think I was talking to you about this yet, Tim, but I had heard that getting in a sauna, right, and you could burn out any potential, viruses, and it was just a good thing to do. So me and my wife, Christina, we went over to my business partner's house because they had a sauna inside of their house, and we did that. So I always thought it was interesting whenever Tim brought this up to me just a few weeks ago or maybe a month ago about, this sauna and everything. So I started, checking out. I'm like, because I did a little research on wanting to get a sauna in my house. I'm like, holy cow, that's a little expensive. I don't think I'm going to be able to afford getting a sauna. And then whenever you tell me about this, I was like, wait, I can get the same benefits, but it's not going to cost me an arm and a leg. So,
well, I will say this, it's better than the same benefits. Like there is, dude, I've been geeking out on this shit for years. Right. And I am not going to, I did a lot of research before I dropped $5,400 on that sauna, but the information that I had on it, I'm like, I have to get a sauna. Right. So what he was talking about was, as far as viruses and stuff goes, it's like when we get the flu, our body creates a natural fever. Our body will increase our core temperature to do what? to knock back the virus. That's what it does. And so what we're doing is we're increasing our core temperature, but we're doing it every day. And there is no other sauna that can do what this sauna does. These saunas, the little tent saunas, the pop-up ones like this one, or even the really good ones, we're looking at 0.5 degree to 1.5 degrees maybe of increased core temperature. 25 minutes in this little sauna, you can increase your core temperature by 3.2 degrees. This is massive. And if you listen to the people, back in the day, Hippocrates and Paramedes, to, physicians and stuff back in the day, they said, give me the power to create fever and I will cure all disease. That is why saunas are so important, especially infrared, because they can actually go inside and heat and detox your deepest oil-based organs as well, like your gallbladder and your liver, right? Very important stuff. And if somebody still wants to do a Finlandia sauna and, a steam sauna, do that stuff too. But this little sauna is something I think everybody should have in their repertoire, because if you're around somebody that's got the flu and you don't want to get it, you can take a sauna preemptive. I take one every day. I took one this morning. I feel freaking amazing. Like, you want to sleep good? Take one of these saunas, rinse off, and go to bed, man. You sleep like a freaking baby. Sometimes today, I'll probably do it twice today, right? And I'm still thinking about it. I might pay the extra $40-$50 for the airline, and I might just have my sauna shipped up with me to the cabin and take a freaking sauna while I'm up there in Alaska. Dude, it weighs 33 pounds. There's no way I could have done that with my $5,400 unit, ship it up there. The thing weighed like 500 pounds. It would have cost me like $5,000 to ship it back and forth. Can't do it. With this thing, I could literally take it on as a carry-on. What's that? That's my sauna. And that will help your back big time, brother, and a lot of other things.
Awesome. Man, I wish I could go sit in a sauna now. I've got my wife and all 3 kids are sick right now, so I'm on edge. So
well, you better get one ordered.
Yeah, hurry.
Yeah, there you go. Well, hey, Jim, I really, really do appreciate you coming on, being a guest. We're going to make sure that, I think you were wise to get on here, because here's what we've discovered is that your clients or prospective clients, they want to know about you. They don't want to necessarily know about, the mechanics of what you can help them out with. They want to know who you are as a person. And coming on here, we've heard from all of our guests about how that's benefited them to be able to share this and repurpose it. And maybe you get it on your website. And I know that, again, I was on there yesterday. You've done a really good job. I don't know who put that together, if that was you or if you went out and found, a marketing firm to help you put that together. But this will be a good way for your prospective clients to get to know who you are on their own. And we're just thankful and blessed that you were able to come on today and be our guest on the Health and Wealth Podcast Show.
Yeah, I really appreciate you all having me. And Tim, I appreciate your all of your input and everything there. I'll definitely work on all that.
I sure hope that your back gets better, brother. And thanks for coming on to the show today. You're a real cool person.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Well, hey, Enrichers, thank you again for joining us for another Health and Wealth Podcast. For my co-host, Tim James, I am Carter Wilcoxon, CEO and founder of CSI Financial Group. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. And you can go and check out all of our other podcasts previously by going to www.thehealthandwealthpodcastshow.com. Everybody have a wonderful weekend. Father's Day is coming up. Thank you again for joining us. And make sure you do like us and share and subscribe on Apple Podcast, Google, and Spotify. Thank you for Jim Crider again coming on for Intentional Living FP. You can go to his website, intentionallivingfp.com. And then you can also check out my co-host, chemicalfreebody.com, for all of Tim's products and solutions. Thank you again. Everybody have a great day. Hey, Enrichers. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Health and Wealth Podcast. I'm your host, Carter Wilcoxon.
And I'm your host, Tim James. And by God, we are committed to helping you guys have fat wallets, flat bellies. So tune in again for another episode and make sure to like, share, and drink a lot of water.
Or beer.
You have just listened to the Health and Wealth Podcast with Carter and Tim.